In this video, I propose to educate you with the help of an English channel how Rahul Gandhi contributed to the suffering of the disaster affected people of Wayanad, how he made their life more miserable, and how he capitalized on the suffering of a people in order to make a political harvest out of it. This is something that every Indian must pay attention to, and in order to be factually 100% correct, in order to represent the reality as faithfully as possible, the first thing we do is to listen to what the reporter or the anchor of a news actually said about Rahul Gandhi's visit to Wayanad. Mind you, 48 hours after the disaster took place. Not immediately after. He wanted to come the very next day, but very wisely he delayed his arrival by one more day. He came only after 48 hours, and why he did so, we shall have occasion to examine. But the first thing to do, in order to be absolutely correct about the factual grounds of our discussion, it is necessary, it is desirable to listen to the reportage, the journalism of the GODI media, and then we shall uh, dare to share some reflections on it. Let's move to the the reporting.
Rahul Gandhi facing public ire and outrage during his visit to the landslide affected areas. Remember, he used to represent the very seat of Wayanad in Parliament. Now, Sister Priyanka Gandhi Vadra also there present along with him as they faced the villagers' protest from when they were visiting the Mundakai and Punchiri Matam areas of Kerala, these places that were affected by the landslides there and has claimed the lives of over 300 people. The angry locals have been questioning Rahul Gandhi. Why and what capacity is he visiting the area? The locals also questioned Rahul Gandhi if he was in the flood affected state just to get some dirt on his feet. As far as the incident that has given BJP fresh ammo to corner the Congress and alleging that Rahul Gandhi apparently has blood on his hands.
So you've heard that report. It says that Rahul Gandhi came to Wayanad just to get some dirt on his shoes, presumably to turn that dirt into electoral gold when the time comes. The second emphasis is that the local people protested violently, vehemently against Rahul Gandhi's visit. I'm in no position to tell you whether or not Rahul Gandhi managed to get some dirt on his shoes or his trousers or his famous white t-shirt. But I can tell you something for sure. There was no local protest. No affected human being or a relative or a distant relative living at a distance or any well-meaning Keralite resented Rahul Gandhi's visit to Wayanad. Rather, everybody appreciated the fact that Rahul and his sister Priyanka found the time in the midst of the very hectic assignments they have, especially at a time when the parliament is in session, to come and spend nearly 2 days in Wayanad among the flood affected people, sharing their tears, their sorrows, their suffering, listening to individuals, their problems, listening also to the people who are busy bringing relief, appreciating the good work being done by the various agencies that are coordinating this rescue work. Very arduous, tedious work. I mean, one feels incapable of describing verbally what is involved in this kind of work. It's beyond words, it's beyond human imagination. Even to look for the dead bodies in the sea of mud and slush and debris and logs and piles of wood. It's an experience that defies description. And he was in the midst of it all. So It is factually utterly wrong. It is not even a white lie, it's a black lie that the Rahul Gandhi was greeted with a fusillade, a volley of local protest. The truth is exactly the opposite. Surely, the visit of the siblings created unhappiness in the BJP camp. So, according to the channel and its reporters, Kerala is nothing but a handful of BJP activists. Now, I protest very strongly against this because I live in Kerala. I'm a Keralite. I know the ground reality is better than this channel. It is a complete misrepresentation, a diabolic misrepresentation of facts. Of course, at a time when media is subsisting on lies and damn lies, such things are to be expected. The third thing, which is by way of implication, according to this channel, the worst thing that a politician can do is to visit and be in solidarity with the victims of disasters of various kinds. Now, the anger does not really care to educate us regarding the logic of this assumption. In what sense does it suit the interest of disaster affected people that leaders disown them in the hour of their suffering and their privation? And how that is better than somebody bothering to come and merely sit with them and hold their hands and say a word of consolation, give them some sense of hope. How come this caring approach is a crime against a nation? How come it merits universal condemnation? Whereas the crass indifference, the cruel apathy of others is very laudable, and that's the new norm, the new normal. Now, this is something that we have to pay attention to. Now, the logic, of course, doesn't have to be stated. I think we are intelligent enough to make an inference on this. When you create a political culture of cruelty, of domination, of power play, and when you think that all that matters is economic, political, media, muscle power, and that elections can be won and needs to be won only through a collusion of these various axes of powers that I've just now mentioned, then you create an overall political vision which is based on hard-hearted indifference, which feels rebuked. I'm using the word advisedly, which feels rebuked by any show of sympathy, solidarity, care, concern for the victims of various kinds of human suffering, either direct man-made suffering or indirect man-made suffering, as in the case of so-called natural disasters. They're not purely natural. And the human factor plays a big role in all of this. Or the kind of suffering induced by policy decisions, systemic aberrations, etc. So those in power find it a waste of time to be in solidarity with victims of various kinds. So if you look at it from their perspective, it's an act of insolence. It's an act that directly contradicts their fundamental creed for somebody to show unnecessary and outlandish sympathy to the victims of suffering, victims of disaster, calamities, accidents, etc. Because, and this is what everyone must understand, if you look at it from the perspective of power, sympathy is weakness. Compassion is an unnecessary burden. It's a dispensable commodity. A person in power cannot be bothered with the duty to be compassionate and caring. And to the extent that he cannot bother to practice these spiritual values, he finds it a group of people may find it a frontal insult to them that someone else bothers to do what they don't care to do. Because it goes with the psychology of power that those in power set themselves up as the norm or the role model for others. So others are obliged, according to them, others are obliged to follow their footsteps, to behave as they do. If they feel sympathetic towards someone, then you have to. If they feel excited about something, then you also have to feel excited. If they feel hostile towards somebody, then you too have to be hostile. You have no business to have your own emotions, your own convictions, your own understanding, your own priorities. You are required to conform to the agenda set from and by the center of power. And a media that's completely co-opted into that center of power can only react in this manner. Rather than feel aggrieved about or feel indignant about Rahul Gandhi and his sister Priyanka taking the trouble and time to come to Wayanad to express solidarity with people who are suffering unspeakable privations. Those in governance, those in power, including some media barons, should have come to Wayanad, seen for themselves what the ground realities are. But then the problem is, if they see the ground realities, if they know the truth, they cannot do this kind of depraved, diabolic journalism and dish out lies, damned lies to a whole nation. Fortunately, now very few people watch these channels because people have realized that if you want to know the reality, you cannot get it from them. You have to turn to social media. In fact, I myself have given up watching mainstream television channels. I came across this only in YouTube. A YouTube video clipping is what I am basing my information on. I don't watch television channels these days because I've had enough of this consumption of utter falsehood. I want to corrupt and desecrate myself by exposing my consciousness to the spouting of deliberate, willful falsehood within a grand scheme of misleading an entire nation. So, either you show solidarity and sympathy to those who are suffering, or you viciously attack, as this television anchor is doing, viciously attack those who show sympathy and solidarity with the suffering. Now, to the extent that Rahul Gandhi is taking a path which is directly contrary to the path preferred by the political, economic, social elite of India, they feel offended, they feel indignant, they feel angry that he, though he belongs to the political elite class, has the temerity to take a different path. You are required to conform to the dominant trend set by the ruling elite. So be indifferent. Do not make much of the suffering of the common man. After all, you read the national newspapers, you see the national television. What is the proportion of time allotted to the highlighting of issues concerning the common man? The wedding of a rich man will get coverage for 2 weeks. 10,000 farmers committing suicide will not get 2 minutes. 25,000 children in rural India dying of diarrheal diseases because they don't have safe drinking water. 25,000 children below the age of 5 dying every month will not get any coverage, will not get a single mention, not even 5 seconds. But the slightest inconvenience caused by a celebrity will get plenty of media attention. That's a kind of wonky order of priorities that informs our media world. That's the reason why I'm completely fed up with it. These days, I try to protect myself from the mainstream media, both print and electronic. It is this kind of stuff we can expect from them. Can you imagine somebody who is not aware of the ground realities in Wayanad listening to this report? If they're not careful, if they're not aware of the trickeries, the dishonesties, the deceptions that the GODI media thrives on, they will feel immeasurable indignation towards Rahul Gandhi, which is the very purpose of this reporting. This event is reported not to highlight the suffering of the people of Wayanad or to motivate the people far and near to come to the help of the victims of the disaster. It has only one purpose, and that is, by any means available, provoke and aggravate indignation towards Rahul Gandhi. Why? Because Rahul Gandhi, given his nature, naturally tries to connect to people in need. That's his nature. And because it is natural and because it is not something acted out, because it is not hypocritical, it has a tremendous magnetic power on the common people, the people of India, the vast majority of people, about 80 to 85% of India's population. They now feel irresistibly drawn to Rahul Gandhi. The more he expresses his native goodness in this kind of outreach, reaching out to people in trouble, the more the people of India will emotionally attach themselves to them, and that's bad news to the governing dominant elite comprising the political power, the economic power, the media power, and so on and so forth. The ruling elite of India who have cornered and monopolized the total wealth of the nation. For them, any change in relation to the stranglehold they have already attained on national resources is unthinkable. So they will fight the last-ditch battle against the democratic process that always keeps alive the possibility of bringing about changes. So all this media reportage is against the prospect of any change whatsoever. So it is nothing but the attempt to deify and perpetuate the status quo, so that the predicament of the victims of status quo will never change, and they are doomed to suffering and deprivation. The very same pattern is at work in the objection to caste basis census enumeration. That's not my main topic here. Maybe I'll deal with it in another video. The reason why caste-based census is objected and is considered a divisive ploy, a divisive measure, is that if the ground realities about the people of India come to light via the census, it could affect the prospects of the dominant ruling elite. We at least have that much commonsensical capability to understand that if the dominant class of a society objects to something, it's only because they think that their interests will be affected. And since all of us know this principle that in every society, every age, in every country, the dominant class and the dominant power center, via propaganda, misleads or tries to mislead the people into believing that the interest of the dominant class alone is the interest of the people at large. They use every method available to convince people that the enumeration of caste is such a crime against the nation, as though by not counting the people in terms of the caste identities, you can blot out caste identity and forge unity in India. All that the elimination of caste in the census procedure will achieve is the perpetuation of the suffering of the underprivileged, the neglected, and the exploited. Because by blotting out their identity, on paper, their suffering also is blotted out, is eradicated. If there are no scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, if there are no Dalits, then Dalit suffering also doesn't exist. So nobody can thereafter talk about Dalit suffering because Dalits don't exist. So anyway, our subject is not the caste. I've just used it as an incidental illustration. Now, it's appalling, my dear friends, that such willful, deliberate lies can be spouted to a nation at large. I say it again, as someone who is living in Kerala, who has followed every bit of Rahul Gandhi's visit to the disaster-affected areas. The presence of Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi has been hugely welcomed, widely respected, and valued. It has given a lot of encouragement to the people who are working in the field. It has given new, fresh hope to the people affected. It has also served the very important and valuable purpose of focusing national attention on Wayanad to the extent that otherwise it would not have been possible. You would have noticed that even Biden's expression of solidarity with the people of Wayanad came only after the announcement that Rahul Gandhi had decided to visit Wayanad. These are not small things. So, the leaders of the country coming to the disaster-affected people, the value of which must not be evaluated or assessed in terms of the volume of material relief that they bring. They may or may not bring that, but the far greater service that they render in such a context is to help focus the attention of the nation as a whole, indeed humanity as a whole, on this huge tragedy which has struck the people overnight, unawares. And through that, maybe a lot of other good things can happen. So rather than decry this intervention of compassion, which is natural to human nature, if at all we are human beings, whether we should be human or not is a different issue that political parties can decide, but I choose to be human and nothing else. And therefore, there's a natural and spontaneous response of the human element in us to denounce that and to malign it to the extent to which this anger has done is, to say the least, the most reprehensible, most lamentable, and may I say, extremely repugnant. I don't have a word stronger than this. Most repugnant. So, all these are telltale events from which we should read the writings on the wall. If this is the direction which the country is being taken, I tell you, that direction is a disaster, 1,000 times worse than the Wayanad disaster. That is a national disaster. The complete rejection of compassion, fellow feeling, and the need to be caring, the need to be in solidarity with people who have lost everything, and to treat them with crass indifference as though they don't exist. That attitude, that outlook of utter callousness and indifference becoming normal is a far greater national disaster than what happened in Wayanad. I have nothing more to say. Jai Hind.